What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the East Coast Bitcoin Summit. Thank you all for coming out. Let's thank our establishment, Underground Arts. This place is beautiful. All right. And I also want to give a huge shout out to Chris Scamuffa from laughcast.com for being able to put all this together and broadcast and give the people that couldn't make it out here the privilege of watching us goof around for 5 minutes and not really getting started on time. So thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. All right, so welcome to the End the Fed rally. That's essentially what this is, isn't it? This is like a grown version of the End the Fed rally because for somebody that's hosted a bunch of different End the Fed rallies here in Philly, one of the things that we've noticed is they don't end it. Like, we've held rally after rally after rally, and it's still open. They're just not getting the message. So rather than asking them to close their doors and stop doing what they're doing, the real, in my mind, and I think in a lot of people's minds, especially in this room, is to just turn your back on it and find an alternative. So, like, this really is kind of like an End the Fed rally. All right, put it that way. With no further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Josh Harvey. Josh is a freelance software developer and has been obsessed with Bitcoin since late 2010. He's the founder of the New Hampshire Bitcoin Meetup. He's a member of the Free State Project. All right. Woo. Josh firmly believes that decentralizing technologies such as the internet, 3D printing, and Bitcoin have the potential to dissolve the corrupting patterns of centralized political control. So please give a warm welcome to Mr. Josh Harvey.
Satoshi Nakamoto. He wanted to fulfill one personal, very universal request. Let me hear it. Anybody gonna know who this guy is? And what does Cuba Gooding Jr. say? Show me the money. Let me hear it again. Show me the money. Let me hear it again. Come on. Show me the money. Chris? All right, I think we're working now. Here it is, guys. This is the money. This is the Genesis block of Bitcoin. The Genesis block is the very first transactions ever recorded in the Bitcoin experiment, in the Bitcoin economy. This particular screen is really interesting to you if you're a computer. But there's one thing here that kind of speaks to people too. This is what Satoshi wrote in the very first transaction block of Bitcoin. The Times, January 3rd, 2009, Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks. So it's kind of like the geek version of holding up a newspaper in a ransom photo. He wanted to prove that this block came out after January 3rd, 2009, but he might have had a message in here for the federal banks too. So what is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is money. And to really understand what's going on with Bitcoin, we have to understand what money is. Money is a signal, right? Money, gold, dollar bills, they're not useful for anything in normal daily life. You can't drive around in them, you can't eat them. They don't provide shelter. They provide one thing, and they provide one thing amazingly, and that's a signal for human action. So if I have money, if somebody gave me money, that's a signal that I'm doing work for that person. If I have some money, that's a signal I've been doing work for people. When I give money to somebody else, that's a signal that they can do work for me and move that around in the economy. The most important thing that money has to provide is scarcity. If money doesn't have the scarcity, it can't work as a reliable signal. If it does have scarcity, and it's very well controlled, it can provide that universal signal to coordinate human action among people. And that's the magic of money. It allows human society to function, modern human society. Second thing we need in money is uniformity. So scarcity provides the faithful ability for that signal to work. Uniformity makes it convenient. Money wouldn't work very well if you had to constantly be wondering if this piece of money was worth more than that other piece of money. For it to flow smoothly, you've got to have uniformity. Money has to have a few other things for convenience. The better it fulfills these things, the better it's going to be as a money. It's be durable, divisible, portable. Just wouldn't be very useful otherwise. But those are things that a digital money will get for free. You know, durability, divisibility, portability, that's all really easy when you're dealing with bits and bytes. The last thing you want in a money is you want it to be acceptable, right? You want money, you want to be able to go into the store and you want them to accept it. If nobody's accepting that money, it might be great at all this other stuff, but it's not going to be great as a money. That's something that's still a question mark for Bitcoin. It's gradually growing, it's getting out there. If you walk into your local supermarket, they're probably not going to accept it yet, and that's a challenge that Bitcoin is going to be facing over the next coming months and years. But Bitcoin fundamentally is software, and this is the most important thing you have to understand about Bitcoin. That is all it is. It's a piece of software. You download it on your computer, just like you would Solitaire or Word, and you run it on your computer. There's nothing else out there. There are no servers. There are no companies, there are no organizations, there are no governments behind Bitcoin. It's just ordinary people running software on their computers, and those computers are talking with everybody else who are just like them, and that is all there is to it. If you understand that, you kind of understand the power of a distributed digital currency like Bitcoin. But software has a problem. We talked about scarcity, and we talked in computer terms, what you have is a double spend problem. If there's one thing computers are really good at, it's copying files. You can ask Warner Brothers about that. They're really good at making a faithful, exact copy of whatever you give them. That's kind of a problem for money. If I have 5 Bitcoins in my wallet, I make a copy of the Bitcoins, right? I give Alice 5 Bitcoins, and I turn around and give the copy to Bob. Got 10 Bitcoins worth for 5 Bitcoins. That's not a very good currency. It ruins the scarcity, and it basically makes the money worthless. That's what Satoshi had to get around, the double spend problem. He had to create scarcity for a digital currency. And the way he did that is with something called the blockchain. The blockchain is an imposing structure. It's all digital. It's created by the individual Bitcoin software running on everybody's computer. Okay. Maybe I'll take this off. How's that? All right. Now you can hear me. The blockchain. The blockchain is an incredible structure in digital bytes created by all these individual users on their computers. But you might want to think about it as a tower, a great tower, such as the Empire State Building. It all starts with the Genesis block, right? The ground floor. These fine people over here are Bitcoin miners. And what they're doing is they're collecting all of the transactions in the Bitcoin economy and putting them into a story. The story is called a block. Every 10 minutes, a block is created. In the next 10 minutes, they're going to be doing the same thing over again. They're going to be creating another block, another story. That's going to bury the transactions from the previous one. And they're just going to keep on going until they've created an incredibly towering structure that dominates the skyline. Now, if I want to do that double spend with Alice and Bob, I've got to put the transaction into one of these floors. I've got to show that to Bob. Then I've got to turn around, create another story, and show that to Alice. Now that's a lot of work, building a floor in the Empire State Building. I don't have, as a single cheater who wants to, cheat Alice and Bob out of Bitcoins, I don't have the ability to build the higher structure in the skyline. The most I'm going to get maybe is MetLife. And that actually, that's a gross exaggeration. I can't build the MetLife building. But I'm never going to be able to build something taller than the entire rest of the network. And that's where the Bitcoin security lies. So Satoshi solved the double spend problem. He's now got a digital currency that's scarce. It's fantastic. But nobody has this money, right? How does he get that out there into the world? Now, Bernanke had a good idea here. But this isn't really what Ben Bernanke does. Ben Bernanke doesn't have a helicopter. He has a truck, and he just drives the money straight into the parking lot at the Treasury. It would be a lot better if he did have a helicopter, and he just uniformly dropped dollars on everybody in the country. That would be a lot more fair. But he doesn't do that. He gives it straight to the Treasury. The other problem with Ben Bernanke is he doesn't have one of these. This is the Bitcoin schedule. It's the schedule of the money supply. And just like everything else in Bitcoin, it's transparent, open, and scheduled for everybody to see. What you see here, the blue line, is the number of Bitcoins in existence. It started out here at 0. And for the first 4 years, we were printing about 50 Bitcoins every 10 minutes. So every block, we'd be printing 50 Bitcoins. That's how it gets out there. Right now, we've entered the second stage. The second 4 years, we're only printing 25 every block. So the red line here is the inflation. So it started off at really infinite inflation because there were no Bitcoins, and we created some. And that went down. It's continually going down as this experiment proceeds. And right now, we're somewhere around 12% inflation annually, which is probably about the same as the dollar is currently being inflated. But the difference is, we know in Bitcoin that that's just going to keep on going down over the years until in about 30 years, we're going to tend towards really zero inflation for Bitcoin, and that's it. We'll reach 21 million Bitcoins in existence, and that's all there will ever be, 21 million Bitcoins. So the inflation is known ahead of time, and right now, it's already starting to get pretty low. All right, so who gets these Bitcoins, right? We said they were being thrown out there into the world at a known schedule. That's great. Who creates them? Who gets them? The answer is the miners. Now, they don't look like the guys we saw before. They also don't look like these guys, but it is helpful to think of mining as kind of mining for gold. That's why they're called miners. So how does gold get out there? The miners go and they look for it. They find some gold. They sell it to other people. That's how it works. Same thing with Bitcoin, although the miners probably look a little bit more like this. What the miners are doing, first of all, is they're checking what's going on in the network. So they want to make sure we're not getting the double spend problem. They're looking over all the transactions coming in, checking them for stuff, especially double spends, making sure everything's good. But that's not enough. Satoshi had a problem. Checking all the transactions coming in, that's pretty easy. That's not like building a floor in the Empire State Building. A computer could do that instantly. So how do we make it hard enough to create that floor so that we get that scarcity in the Bitcoins and we get the security in that imposing structure? The answer is a lottery. What happens in Bitcoin is instead of having all these miners printing money, we have them printing lottery tickets. And what does that mean? A lottery ticket, think of it as filling out a form for a lottery ticket. In that form, you have to put down on all the transactions. They have to be correct. They have to be checked for double spends. And then you put a little random number at the bottom. That's your lottery number. And then you submit that to the network. If everything's good, you're going to keep on submitting those thousands and thousands of times a second until you hit on the correct lottery number. guy who wins, kind of like these guys, is going to receive some rewards. They're going to get the prize for that 10-minute block. So there are two things they get. They get the block reward, which is this 50 bitcoins. Right now we're on 25. Every block, if you win the block, you get those bitcoins, and you also get the transaction fees. So the more transactions coming in, the more money you're going to make. Now, we've gone through a lot of complicated subjects here. It's a little much to take in. This is, of course, all just a waving of hands. And we're going to get a little bit more towards the technical stuff later on. We're going to see why this is so revolutionary. Right now, the idea is to get an idea of how Bitcoin works and if it really makes sense. Ultimately, however, there's only one way to figure out in a free market if an idea works, and that's by looking at the price. This is what Bitcoin has done since 12 months ago. Now, it started off at about $3.25 12 months ago. This number fluctuates from minute to minute, so I didn't have time to update the slide 5 minutes ago. I think that's pretty accurate right now. Bitcoin has seen wild fluctuations over the last 4 years, but it's growing, it's gaining momentum, lots of exciting things are going to happen, and it has the potential to change the world. So I'm hoping you guys go out there, get interested in it, get involved, and move this thing forward. Who knows where it's going to go. Thanks a lot. We can open this up now. I think we have some time for some questions, right? There are usually quite a few questions after a Bitcoin presentation. So, anybody have any? Yeah. How does everybody get? How do you perceive it facing that problem? Are you just going to keep breaking down fractions? Yeah, it's a great question. So the 21 million bitcoins, we talked about divisibility at one point. That's the idea that you can create in fractions of a bitcoin. And bitcoins are very, very divisible. So you can get down to 8 decimal places after the dot. And which means that for the foreseeable future, you'll have enough fractions like Bitcoin cents to fulfill any kind of economic need. And eventually, we probably won't be dealing in Bitcoins. If the price keeps on going up, we're going to start, making up some other names for the smaller fractions of a Bitcoin, cents, milli-Bitcoins, whatever kind of catches on. And because, one Bitcoin might buy your car. Yeah.
I've recently placed an order with Butterfly Labs for 2 of their single units.
Yeah.
They're expected to ship to me in January, so I can begin to start mining at the latest. And I just want to ask, what's your opinion on what's the future hold for someone like myself who wants to get into doing some mining just to experience it and hopefully benefit from it long term? Is the prognosis good for newcomer miners? What's the future hold?
Yeah, well, Bitcoin mining is the Wild West. Probably more apt would be the wildcatters in Pennsylvania when they first discovered oil around here. Who knows? It's a crazy world. Nobody can foresee what's going to happen, in the next few months. People have made some good money in mining. Some people have lost money in mining. Depends what your electricity costs are. Depends when you get in the game, what you buy, what the technology, how much you resell it. If the card you bought comes on time, whether it's broken, you have to replace it. So there's so many factors. I think a lot of people are having a lot of fun with it, sometimes making money. You're going to get some Bitcoins in, right? So that's a good thing. I'd say, nobody can tell you really if it's going to work out great or not. But if you want to get into it, it's really an exciting field.
Do you personally mine?
I personally don't mind.
If you could come up to the front for questions and use this microphone so the online audience can hear as well.
So when you're talking about the visibility, traditionally currencies have one or two names for it. We have dollars and we have cents. India, they have rupees and so forth. As we keep devising, you realize we're going to have 8 different names almost for each one of those tenths of a decimals, because at some point people are going to get almost a little bit confused by when we get to you're at a 10,000th of a Bitcoin. Right now we have the standard of a Bitcoin. So how do you foresee those smaller and smaller and smaller fractions kind of discouraging people from and confusing people from investing in it?
Yeah, that actually came up last year when there was a bubble in the Bitcoin price. It went up to about $30, and people started realizing that the Bitcoin wasn't a good measure. So people don't like dealing in tiny fractions in day-to-day life. They much rather deal in 10, 100. So it really depends where the price is. I think as the price moves, let's say $100 a Bitcoin, $1,000 a Bitcoin, whatever it is, people are going to find out which decimal place they want to be at, and yeah, they'll have to come up with some names. So there are a bunch of names just run around the millions, for 1,000 of a Bitcoin. The tiniest Bitcoin bit, which is like 8 decimal places out, is called a Satoshi. So that kind of just like appeared. That it's not like Satoshi made up that name or anything. Somebody that just kind of caught on. So that seems like that's going to stick. I don't know what's going to be a thousandth of Bitcoin. Might be a milli. It might be something completely different. Nobody. I think it's like language. It just kind of slang. It just kind of happens. So I can't really foresee that. Yeah.
Considering that Bitcoin is essentially a digital currency, what would happen in the event of some kind of, let's say I have a problem and a storm puts my power out for a week and I really need to be able to trade. How do we hedge against that with Bitcoin, considering it's digital?
All right, so there are 2 ways. The first way is to have a little gold in your pocket. And you said hedge. So Bitcoin, the idea of Bitcoin isn't to replace one monolithic system with another monolithic system, even though that system is distributed and everybody's equal and everything. But you never want to put all your trust into one thing, one technology, one idea. I think you always want to diversify, and gold is always going to have certain advantages. Gold, silver, what have you. The other thing is you could just, what you need is just some information to be able to control your money. You just need to know your key. If you have that, you can go to any computer. Maybe somebody's running a generator, so you can go over to his computer and use it. You don't have to have power on your computer. But if you're sitting at home and nobody around has any power or internet or anything, then yeah, it's going to be kind of hard to transact in Bitcoins, and that's where you need something really physical. And there are, physical representations of Bitcoins out there. So there are physical Bitcoin coins. Maybe those could come in useful in that kind of situation. Yeah.
I'm not sure if I missed this on the first question, but why 21 million?
No, you didn't miss that. That's a good question. There are a few kind of constants that Satoshi, the creator of Bitcoin, just put into his program. And it's kind of like a judgment call. There's no real good reason. He doesn't explain any reason why they're 21 million. It works pretty well. I mean, it's the right scale. I don't know why he picked exactly that number. I don't know if anybody does. But he got a lot of things right, and that might be one of the things. Matt, do you have a...
I could offer a possibility on that.
All right.
If you take all the money that's currently in existence in the world and you replace it with Bitcoin, then 1 Satoshi would be about 1 US cent right now in terms of value.
Yeah. Well, that's possible. He might have done that calculation, found that out, and whether he did or not, it works. So however he came to it, it kind of works. That's the best answer I could give. Anybody else? Yeah.
You were talking about the double spend problem before, and I think you mentioned when your machine's mining, it's looking for double spend. Can you elaborate on that? And has if a machine finds a double spend, what does it do with it?
Okay. Yeah. So one of the functions of miners is to make sure that all of the transactions are verified, and mostly what that means is there haven't been any double spends, because that's the major problem we're trying to solve here. And
So it's never happened yet?
oh, It might have happened, but it's not that big. Like if somebody finds it, I'm sure it's happened. But if a miner finds it, he's just going to throw it out. That's what would happen. And sometimes it could happen by accident. You know, but he'll just throw out that double spend. It'll never get into a block. If he tries to put it into a block, then nobody will accept that whole block, and he just did all that work for nothing. So he put in all his time, electricity, and effort to finally get a lock. He won the lottery, and everybody's going to say, hey, I'm not taking this. You know, it's like trying to give in a fake lottery ticket. So that's the way that works. Does that answer the question? You want to maybe walk up to the microphone again?
Talk into the mic, too.
So is a double spend a duplicate Bitcoin essentially?
Yeah, it's a duplicate transaction. So it's like if I'm sending you these, let's say I have 5 Bitcoins, I'm sending them to you, and then at the same time, before you have a chance to do anything, I also send them to Joe over there, the same 5 Bitcoins. That's a double spend.
Okay.
Anybody else? How are we doing on time? Any last questions? Yeah.
You were saying in a grid down situation, you know, that you could go to another computer
Yeah.
and log in. In the beginning of the presentation, you said that it would require certain software. So is this something that's connected to the internet? And if so, like, would it be up to the user to have a firewall or encryption on their computer to prevent hacking?
Yeah, it's a good question. The short answer is yes. So you want to be pretty careful with the computer you're running Bitcoin on. You know, you want it to have good security. And they're working on all kinds of ways around that. So one possibility is you'll just have a little device in your pocket that will be secure, and then you'll just plug it into anybody's computer, and it'll still be secure because you have that hardware device that it's running on. And you're just using the computer to get onto the internet. So that's one way around it. Maybe you'll have a little flash drive where you can boot into that flash drive as the operating system. You probably don't want to just, you know, copy your wallet onto that computer and use it. But, you know, if you really need the money, then sometimes you'll do things that you wouldn't ordinarily do. Yeah, I think that about wraps it up. Thanks a lot, everybody, and thanks for coming.